see you guys in the dark.
I am now 30 and I don't like to walk at night. I used to not really care as a child. I even remember playing with my cousins in front of my tia's house late into the night and walking with my brothers to the park down the street. When we lived in apartments along White Rock, me and my brothers would often walk around the lake as the sun was going down and make it back at night. Anyway, all to say, I didn't really feel uncomfortable at night until this incident. A little necessary background info. My parents are divorced and have been since I was like 9. My mother had full custody and my dad got us on weekends and half the summer. I had avoided going to his house for much of my preteens, but by 15 to 16, I wanted to spend more time with him for some reason. And so it was at his house one summer in July that I decided to talk a late night walk. Pretty sure it was midnight. He lived in a nice suburb outside of Dallas, Mesquite, and there was one road that led out of the neighborhood onto the main street, and then you would follow the main street and turn onto another street to make a full circle. I was feeling restless that night, so I grabbed my chihuahua and we went on a walk. It was quiet, but normal for the neighborhood at the time, which is different now, and I didn't think much of anything. It wasn't crazy hot, and so I just walked down this neighborhood street, which is like one of the main entrances to the neighborhood. I was just looking around, nothing of note, very boring, normal suburb, trying to see which houses probably had the same floor plan as my dad's. As I was walking, I noticed this man driving into the neighborhood. He was driving a big truck, I think it was red, and had all his windows down. He had his hand out of the window and looked right at me. It was so fast that he passed by, but something about how we looked at each other made me a little weary. I was very naive, a young girl walking at night. Very dumb, I know, and didn't trust my gut, which told me to walk back while I still was closer to home than my journey. So I just kept going out to the main street. As I was walking, I started to feel like the mix of Texas heat and humidity was getting to me, plus the weird encounter with that man was making me uneasy. So I turned around and started walking back. About halfway back, I noticed that it seemed as if someone had their headlights on, lighting the side of the sidewalk I was going to be passing, but I couldn't see the vehicle past the house it was parked in front of, and I thought it was strange, but when I actually reached the crosswalk, I looked and noticed it was the red truck. He had his brights on, and I couldn't see in the truck, but what struck me as alarming was that you could tell he had parked hastily. It almost seemed as if he had turned onto the cross street and hadn't attempted to parallel park, so the back of his car was far from the curb, but the front was about few inches. It was a great angle to shine the brights onto the corner I was walking on. It alarmed me so much that I felt like my heart sunk. I tried to remain calm and rushed my dog along as we crossed the street, and then I sped up more as I walked further from the cross street. I heard his tires and the rumble of his engine as he tore out onto the street, and I knew that my gut instinct had been right. I grabbed my dog and carried her as I tried to run, but my chanclas were not holding up well. I stopped to take them off and carry them too, and I took off at a much faster pace. I looked to my right as he passed by, and it felt like the world slowed down. He stared right at me. He didn't look upset or anything. I just remember him looking so normal, as if this was just another day to him. But he did not look away from me as I ran, and he drove by. I still remember his face. He had a round face, but prominent cheekbones with a mustache on his upper lip. He was Hispanic and had black hair. I can't recall his shirt or even what type of truck he drove, but this was also like over a decade ago, so he sped up and was making it to the end of the street before me. My dad's house was one house over from the house at the end of the street, which was a T. I knew I had to get there before he did, but I also knew I was not that fast. He was going to make it before me, and my mind was racing, thinking of how I was going to get away. Then, I remember that my neighbor, who still lives in the house across the street, had just had her fence taken down to be redone. He was waiting at the end of the street for me, and I didn't hesitate. I cut in between my neighbor's house, which was the house in front of the stop sign he was waiting at, and ran into the alley. I stopped in the alley where I could see my dad's house, just a quick sprint, but I was scared that if he saw me, I wouldn't make it. So I stood there, waiting for the sound of his truck driving off and hoping he didn't take a left turn. I was out of breath, my dog was squirming, and I looked at my neighbor's glass backsliding door and hoping, if he came my way, I could make it to her door first. Coincidentally, she happened to be standing in the doorway and she saw me. To this day, I'm not sure why this old woman, seeing a young teenage girl out of breath, holding her chihuahua and chanclas in her hands, didn't try to help. It seemed like she and I stood there for a good minute, and then I heard the truck getting further and booked it to my dad's house. The door wasn't locked, and my dad was in the couch. I ran inside and told him everything. I'm sure a very confused, babbling mess, but he believed me. He, my dog, and I got into the car and drove around the neighborhood to see if we could see the guy, but nothing. Still, I was so shaken. I hugged my dog close that night and have never forgotten this encounter. I think because of the almost park kidnapping incident, I am very wary of out of place people. And now, because of this incident, I won't go walking at night or around sundown without someone else. This happened 7 years ago, while my former relationship was ending. I was 27 years old at the time. Me and my ex boyfriend weren't living together anymore. We were separated for a few months, but not quite broken up yet. I had just found out from his twin brother that he was keeping me as a backup while having fun with other girls, so I decided to end things. It was my birthday. I was a bit emotional about this whole situation, so I decided to go to his place and end it properly, face to face. I took an Uber and went to the other side of the city, very far away from where I live, and in a not so friendly or safe for girls area. I got there, we talked, and ended things on good terms, given the situation. Now it was time to call an Uber and go back home. This was happening in November on a rainy night at about 2 a.m. My ride came, I got in, and I was just looking out the window and thinking. After 5 minutes or so, I noticed that my Uber driver was looking at me in the rearview mirror in every second when he could take his eyes off the road. I brushed it off. This wasn't the first time when it happened, and I was honestly pretty sad to care. But then I noticed that he slowed down a lot. This was when I started to pay attention to my surroundings, but without giving him the sensation that I was doing so. I noticed that he was a thin and tall guy, 25 to 30 years old. He looked like he wasn't taking very good care of himself, and his car was actually pretty dirty. I was just hoping to get home safe and fast at this point. Then, out of nowhere, he started talking. Driver, you are beautiful. Me, long pause. Thanks. Driver, what's your name? Me, long pause, and then I whisper my name. I realized that he could see it in the Uber app anyway. Driver, what a hot name. I've always wanted to have sex with a girl named my name. Me, total terrified silence. Driver, staring at me in the rearview mirror. He started talking and rambling without pause, but expecting clear responses and reactions from me. Driver, do you have a boyfriend? Me, yes. Driver, what a shame. I wanted you for myself. Me, silence. Driver, but I don't mind the boyfriend. Let's go somewhere else. Come on. Change the address in the app because I can't. Only you can. I know a place where we can go be alone and smoke some weed. Me, no, I can't. Take me to the address from the app. At this point, I started to pay close attention to the route he was taking. I was so ready to jump out of the car if the situation had gotten really dangerous. Then he puts on a local rap song, which I never heard before. The lyrics were very explicit, describing what the singer does to a girl during sex. Extremely explicit lyrics. Driver, hear that? That's how having sex with me would be like. Oh yes, I would totally lick you like that and pull your hair until you can't even scream anymore. You will love it and come back begging for more. Me, total silence. At this point, I started messaging my ex and telling him what was happening. It was also a good excuse to not have to look at him or reply. Driver, what do you think about that? Me, silence, texting my ex. Driver, yelling. I asked, what do you think about that? My heart dropped. I froze. Me, well, I haven't heard this song before. Driver, do you smoke weed? Me, no. Driver, smoke a joint with me. Me, no, thank you. Driver, are you home alone? I could call it a night and go to your place and show you what I'm talking about. My heart was racing so bad at this point. I was so scared and shaking so hard. I was home alone, actually living alone. I decided to start recording him from here on and send the recording to my ex. Me, no, my parents are waiting for me. Driver, ugh, that sucks, man. But we can stay in the car. I'll join you on the back seat. We'll find a spot where it's dark. Me, no, I need to go home. I'm tired. Driver, Common, I'll make you come 3 times in 10 minutes. Trust me. Where did I put that weed? and he started searching for it. My ex listened to this part and called me. I was so relieved when I saw my phone ringing. I answered and I made sure that the driver would hear that I'm on the phone with someone. He kept on talking, but I didn't hear much because he seemed to be upset about my phone call, and he was mostly talking to himself. My ex was furious but told me to say out loud things like where I am when I get home, as if he was asking me and I was answering, and other stuff like my mom texted me and is waiting for me to say that I will call him when I get home, etc. I ended the phone call and the driver asked me if that was my boyfriend. I said that it was. He kept silent for about 5 minutes and I was so anxious to get home. We had like 5 more minutes before getting to my address. When he saw on the map that we were getting close, he started asking me again to go somewhere or stay in the car with him, to smoke with him, to tell him everything about me and my life, that he thinks he fell in love, to break up with my boyfriend. His speech was getting scarier and he was getting more and more anxious that he couldn't convince me. He was turning to look at me, stop at green stops so he could turn to me after what seemed like forever, and after shaking like a leaf. When we got in front of my building, I practically jumped out of the car while he was like, "No, don't go. Where is your apartment? Let me come with you." I ran and entered the building. I had previously taken my keys out of my bag to open the intercom. I didn't turn on the light on the staircase because I didn't want him to see where in the block I live. It's a small block with 4 floors only. I stood there in darkness and peeked out the window to see if he was gone. He wasn't. He was looking at the block, probably waiting to see exactly where lights would turn on, also known as where I live. I couldn't even enter my apartment because I had left the lights on in my hallway, and he would have seen that. I waited like 5 minutes and he slowly left. I quickly entered my apartment and locked everything, but I did not turn on or off any lights so it wouldn't seem like someone got home or something. I went to peek out the window to be sure that he indeed left, but surprise, he was back and parked this time. I was scared out of my mind. I know that many would say that I should have called the police, but in my country, the police doesn't come for stuff like this. They barely show up in an hour if someone is being beaten or something. So he was there, just sitting there. Then I get a message from an unknown number telling me to come back down because he is waiting for me. I froze. I froze and cried at this point. It was like my life could completely change because of a 30 to 40 minutes ride with an instable person. I didn't even know how could he take my number from the Uber app or if he buzzed me when HR arrived to pick me up. I couldn't even remember. I didn't reply. He sent a few more messages. I remember that one in particular really creeped me out. He was asking me to at least smoke a cigarette with him on the phone so he can hear me breathing and smoking. I texted back saying to leave me alone. He started calling, and I blocked the number. I was afraid that he could get so angry and try to get into the building and find me. I was looking out the window from behind a curtain, and I saw that after I blocked him, when he tried to call and couldn't, he started smashing his phone against the steering wheel. He finally left after 40 minutes or so of staying there. I remained keeping watch for another 2 hours or so. He didn't return, thank God. The next day, he messaged and called from another number, but I blocked that one as well. He tried once more 1 year later. I was so surprised, honestly. I blocked that number too and never heard from him again. I am also glad that I never saw him or his car again either, although right now I don't really remember how he looked like or what type of car he had. I reported everything to the Uber app and I hope that they took measures. Honestly, I don't understand why nobody before me reported him. It didn't feel like it was the first time when he did this. It was somehow so easy for him. Ugh, one of the worst experiences ever.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.